This is Amanda Metzkes from Camp Quest, and you're listening to Apostasy Now. Apostasy Now. It's awesome, and I want to kind of take that opportunity to recommend people go to our website, campquest.org, and register kids for camp. This is registration season. Registration is filling up fast, so if you're interested in sending your kids to camp, do it soon. Also, though, consider volunteering at camp. I think our adults have almost as much fun as the kids do, and come back year after year and really build a community at camp as well. And then another thing I should mention is we're doing a monthly matching challenge right now. The Stiefel Freethought Foundation is going to give us $5,000 when we get to have 100 people who are signed up as monthly donors. And that can be as little as $5 a month signing up for a subscription to donate. And we're at 44 out of that 100 right now. So if you go to our website and click on the donate button and sign up for a monthly donation, that really, really helps us expand these programs to new areas and bring this opportunity to more campers. The registration deadlines for camp usually are not until right in the very beginning of June. But campers, you should register campers sooner than that, because most of our camps are hitting their capacity and will go to a waiting list. But there's a waiting list, and kids do sometimes get it off the waiting list. So if you go to our website, campquest.org, and then there's a link to register for camp, it'll take you to a list for all the different sessions. And so you'll be able to see when you go there which sessions are still accepting registration and which ones are closed. Campquest.org, campquest.org.
Welcome back to Apostasy Now. I thought you should have a heads up on the fact that Camp Quest, Amanda's going to be our next guest for the next episode, but I wanted to give you a heads up that they're filling up quick. It's an excellent camp. It teaches excellent skills, and it's a lot of fun. campquest.org. Check out their website. As for this week, we've got another amazing guest. I told you he was coming up last episode. Godless Glen. He is a YouTuber, an excellent thinker, and a passionate man who cares about other people. So if you're ready for some godlessness, buckle up. Let's fucking go.
Happy long stockings forever! Hooray! Thanks, kids!
See, Pippi, all of those children envy you. Now let's set sail!
Because I'm very much a skeptic. I'm more of a skeptic than I am an atheist. I mean, atheist is a conclusion based on my skepticism.
You'll have to come like a little child to the foot of the cross.
That attitude is what is responsible for the rise of atheism.
That's not what Islam is all about. Islam is peace.
What is the penalty for leaving the Muslim faith? With the death penalty. Thank you.
This is Apostasy Now.
For people to get the information correct before they start yapping.
Get ready to root for the bad guys.
Begins with E, evidence. All the evidence.
Godless Glen?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right.
I'm doing well, too.
This is Smashlock. He's my partner on the show.
Hey there, how's it going?
Good.
So, how are things going with your projects on YouTube these days?
My channel's been growing a little bit, kind of slowly creeping up along, but some of these guys on YouTube, like The Amazing Atheist and Dusty Smith, I mean, those guys are really killing it.
Yeah, they're flying up in the clouds.
Yeah.
I find that one of the nice things about YouTube, as opposed to how everything used to be on these large corporately controlled conglomerates, is you can be more selective, right? I listen to stuff like The Amazing Atheist every now and then, but he's just kind of carrying on antics a lot of times, I think, for the attention.
Right.
Yeah. There's a downside to it, too.
Yeah, I think mostly for entertainment, I think.
Yeah.
With him.
And plus, he's a shameless self-promoter. Check out my new book. Check out my new book. Guy writes more books in a year than I could ever conceive of writing, so I guess he's got some talent with the keyboard.
Right.
Or a lot of free time, wasn't it?
Yeah. He's making money off YouTube, so...
Yeah, and then he's signed up for Patreon, which I did too, but, I mean, he apparently has got, from the looks of it, like $1,700 a month, just from that alone, not mentioning the money he makes from the YouTube ads and stuff like that.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean he's making probably quite a bit, I would say.
No wonder he has spare time.
Yeah.
The ones that aren't killing it too much anymore, I guess they're a little bit busy, is Iron Raw and Thunderfoot. Those guys got up to like almost 100,000 subscribers each, but their video input, like they haven't put out as many videos.
I think you're going to find those two are not working in tandem very much anymore.
Oh, why? They disagree on something?
Yeah, feminism. Iron Raw came out on the side of feminism, and Thunderfoot's kind of known for for not. Yeah, could make it a little challenging for the two of them to be holding hands.
Yeah, I try to stay out of those little arguments. We had the whole feminist thing, and for a while last year it seemed like everyone was griping about another atheist there for a little while, and Thunderfoot against I don't know, whoever it was. I mean,
Rebecca Watson or
Easy Myers sometimes.
Yeah,
it was
Easy
the
Myers.
two camps. Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course you got Coughlin, and then you've got everybody else. I never did get too much into him for whatever reason. I just
your stuff, it's more focused on the way I was describing it to somebody recently was you go after religion, but it's not like it's an impersonal or inhumane way. It's like the reason your videos, most of them focus, to me anyways, the way they focus their attack is because you are concerned about people.
Yeah, at least I hope that's how most people, at least I hope that's the point that gets across to people. But yeah, I try not to be too big a dick about it, but I get accused of trying to deconvert people, and that's really not the case. I mean, I don't oh yeah, I'm so excited someone came over to Team Atheism. It's more like, I'm just sharing information. I enjoy doing it, and I really want people to think and to question and not just blindly follow. And I think, of course, religion is very harmful. But yeah, like my parents, for example, they're still devout Christians, and we have discussions, but they know not to try to convert me back to Christianity. I know not to try to deconvert them. It's just, we just kind of speak our opinions. And it was hard for a while. I mean, my dad barely spoke to me for like 3 weeks after I came out as an atheist. So
has it come to the point though where you still have a good, strong relationship? It's just that's one thing that you try to approach sensitively.
Yeah, I think that I don't censor too well. I censor some things that I say because, but for the most part, I speak my mind, but I try to avoid it unless she brings it up, my mom or my dad.
Yeah.
Usually my dad doesn't bring anything up. But I would say they're more touchy about certain things about religion, like anything Pat Robertson. I don't know why, but he's like the king. He can do no wrong. Yeah, he can do no wrong. And I just don't get that, because I tried to tell her he's made false prophecies and he just says all kinds of just absurd things. And she's like, oh, but he's like the greatest man ever. And I'm like, no, he's not. But
to put it mildly, he is not.
Right.
When I kind of like you, I don't approach deconversion as the goal.
Right.
With me, at the risk of sounding arrogant, I kind of think of myself as like to use this analogy, like a doctor. I give you the prescription. It's up to you whether or not you take the medicine. The religiosity or your lack of critical thinking skills is your disease. And I'm presenting you with a method or a path to use critical thinking. If you use it in the way it's prescribed, you will deconvert just as an end result of taking the path.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, I think this is also why there are many different things people can get caught up in life, and this is why you can have a group of atheists, and then like we were just talking, like a division will break out, or even multiple sides, people arguing about all kinds of stuff. It's the analogy herding cats.
Yeah.
Is because just because you've walked away from one wrong-headed way of thinking doesn't mean you've applied it to everything. I understand what you're saying. You're challenging them on specific things if they watch your videos, and it's more about stimulating the brain. Let them do what they will with that, right?
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good assessment.
It's funny you mentioned Pat Robertson. Both of you are in a sample of our theme song that I made. I have Pat Robertson saying that gay people are trying to get approval for the quote, the way they do sex. And your quote comes later on, I think, and it's a clip I got from you off of one of your videos where you said, I no longer see things as black and white, good and evil, goats and sheep, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you said, I think that we're all capable of doing good and we're all capable of doing evil. I thought that was a great quote.
I remember that. It seems like you messaged me a while back about that.
Yeah.
A little intro or whatever it was that you made about that. Yeah.
Yeah, this was just when I was starting up the podcast.
I always get a kick out of the people who make fun of Pat Robertson for saying he does the sex. Like, I'm sorry, but I remember distinctly somebody making a video or a podcast where they ranted on about that for a while. It's quite funny.
I feel sorry for his wife when he talked about sex that way.
Yes.
Wow.
Have you done the sex with your wife, sir?
At least once.
Yeah, he's quite humorous. You know, I really find Pat Robertson more delusional than hateful.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like last night I was going over what I call different types of TV preachers, and I may make a video about it because, well, you've got your hateful type, which is like John Hagee and Brian Fisher. Then you've got your positive type like Joel Osteen, and then you've got Pat Robertson, which I guess you could say are your delusional type or whatever word best describes him.
Maybe demented.
Yeah.
I guess if you had somebody like Becky Fitchner on TV more often, she would definitely classify as hateful. She was that woman who ran they did the Jesus Camp movie about her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Telling children 6 and up, God hates you and God hates Harry Potter. And I know it's old news, so I'm not bringing this up as a talking point. It was just...
maybe it's the same kind of distinction, Glenn, as the skeptics that are usually more going after scam artists outright. Maybe it's the difference between the people who read tarot cards and they believe they're real, and the people who read tarot cards and they know they're getting your money, and that's the whole business.
Right.
Same kind of distinction, you think, between delusional and, like, wickedly sick?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, some of them I think know. Some of them it's their livelihood, and that's all they know. Even I think at some point, if they discovered that they were on the wrong side, it's like, what are they going to do? I mean, you know, I mean, I couldn't lay my head down at night and sleep and delude the masses the way these people do. But I mean, apparently, I'm guessing a lot of them do that. And there's a lot of pastors that actually come out and at some point, and they're like, well, I've been an atheist for a while. And they finally break it to their sheep, you know?
Yeah.
But at least they can do that. And hopefully they can find employment doing something, you know?
Have you heard about there's a group in the States, I forget who spun it out, but it's a group that helps ministers who are leaving the ministry. They give them anonymous, like they come in anonymously online or on the phone or whatever. They start giving them advice on anything they can help them with, and then if they decide to leave, they try and help them with that transition. What are they called? I can't remember the name.
I know. I was just trying to think of that while you were mentioning that, and it eludes me. Like X Ministries or something like that, I think, but I'm probably wrong on that. You know what I find really interesting though is like they say that they have no other discernible skill sets, but as a priest, you can do like relationship counseling and nobody bats an eye. But as soon as you admit you're not a priest, you're suddenly no longer qualified. It would be neat if they actually trained these men in seminary school to be qualified.
Some seminary schools are starting to start some training, and they're also starting to teach what not to try and counsel as far as severe mental illness.
Yeah, no, it's not a demon in you. You might have schizophrenia. Please go see a qualified doctor. But I mean, if they train them in actual counseling skills, then they can, if they leave their faith, they have an actual skill set that can be employable.
Yeah,
exactly. And two, I mean, a lot of these preachers are good speakers, and so they should be able to get some type of job. For example, if they were to cross over into atheism or whatever, I mean, they could probably give lectures or travel the country and give seminars or whatever. I mean, so.
Well, some of them, you know, it depends too. Some churches, you don't even have to have Bible school. For instance, the church that I came from currently has a guy who didn't finish high school as the main minister, and the assistant minister had, I think, partial year of Bible school.
Yeah.
That's partial year.
Yeah.
He opened it.
Well, you see, they both have books by Spurgeon, and they both believe in Calvinism, and so that's all of the proper schooling they need, apparently.
Well, they've got the Bible and they've got Jesus, so
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to give them. You know, I went to college for 2 years, and God, I spent so much because I felt like that's what I should do to prepare myself. I mean, I was going to be a pastor after all.
Yeah.
But man, become heavily in debt after that. But yeah, it's crazy. But I mean, I could have probably, even at that point, even with just 2 years of education, I probably could have got a job with the Church of God. Well, in fact, we did, but not like on a ministry level. It was more like working with the Church of God. So
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
What denomination was that?
Lee University is Church of God. It's like a Pentecostal type.
Oh, Pentecostal.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few places that are smaller churches call themselves the Church of Christ or the Church of God, but they usually add a twist. Like someone was just telling me a church around here recently called themselves the Clean Church of God.
Wow.
Yeah, as a reference, like those other guys are not pure.
Yeah, because the women wear pants. No, I don't know. I mean,
actually, they were telling me that they're so hung up on anything that could be ungodly because it's sexual. Mm-hmm. They had recently forbid a man in their church to buy a dually pickup truck because those extra wheels in the back made the back of the truck look like a woman's hips.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah. and they can't wear short sleeve shirts because the minister and the elders think that if you fold your elbow, the part where the shirt meets your elbow looks a bit too much like a woman's bottom. I don't even know what that means.
This is insane. Yeah.
Don't show your armpit. It looks like a vagina. You know,
something. I don't know.
I went to a Church of God Holiness church a number of years ago, and this little old lady stood up, and she's like, "Pastor," she's like, "what's this world coming to?" She's like, "they're teaching the girls in skirts." And I'm like, so? You know, I mean, it's like that was the end of the world to her because they're wearing short skirts. I mean, you know, it was just...
Well, not that I have any problem with girls in short skirts, but I mean, in their defense, when they look out and they imagine the world as it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and then they see naked Miley Cyrus swinging around on a wrecking ball, right. maybe they're not completely off the mark about it going
Maybe they panic a little bit. Soon all the girls will be swinging on wrecking balls.
Hey, you want to know what? That's a good way for women to break into the construction industry. Feminism should get behind this.
That's right. We'd like to hire more women for the construction building business we're running here. How are you at swinging on wrecking balls?
What's your previous experience? Pole dancer? You're hired.
My mom and I were just talking about the whole Miley Cyrus thing the other day, and she thinks it's awful that, you know, that she's kind of strayed from what her dad brought her up to be, and now she's like half naked on stage and being very sexually provocative. But I told her, I said, you know what's offensive to me? I said, you know, her twerking isn't offensive, but I said, it's just silly how big of a debacle we've made it.
Yeah, we that's my concern that I try to get across is people will often accuse me of being a prude, and I'm like, I'm not a prude. I'm not shocked, but what I am is upset that we reward talentlessness. I object to that. Like, there's how many musicians and dancers are extremely devoted and talented to their craft?
Right.
We never hear about these people. They end up having to work as janitors or whatever.
Of course not. They're unattractive. Moving on. Come on.
Yeah.
Maybe if more janitors would twerk, they'd get an opportunity.
A twerking janitor. Oh my God. You work at a public school. You are fired. I do have a question for you, though, because we've been having several discussions about people who come away from faith and the residual leftover effects that it has on a person's psyche. From your personal experience, do you have any moral compunctions or ways of viewing the world that you think are still heavily influenced by your previous faith?
You know, I would say my religious upbringing has still affected me. Like, if I wouldn't have been brought up in a very conservative home, I would probably still view sex a little differently, for just, you know, using sex for an example. Because there's always that bit of, oh, this person sleeps around, whatever. Even though I personally believe that it's, you know, acceptable for people to be promiscuous, polygamous, polyamorous, whatever.
Yeah.
There's always that bit of hesitation.
Yeah.
And even when, and taking the topic with, transgender people, when people want to change, like my first reaction is, why? But then I'm thinking, you know what? That's not for me to decide. That's totally up to them. If they feel like they're in the wrong body, hey, who am I to stand in their way or to criticize them or whatever?
Many of you may have heard the story by now, but there was a transgender prostitute from New York, Amanda Gonzalez, and I won't attempt to pronounce her last name. In 2010, she was murdered after a man named Rasheen Everett strangled her to death after he had went to her home and found out that she had male genitals. If you think you are going home with a woman and you find out she is packing, there is a simple solution. Don't proceed. You don't have to have sex with them, and you certainly don't have to assault or kill that person. Sure, it would be nice to know up front what their genitalia is, but no one is forcing you to do anything. It's sad that transgender people still face the threat of assault and murder simply for being what they are. We still have a ways to go in our society. What is between someone's legs and how they identify is of no concern to you, unless of course you are sleeping with them. And they shouldn't be mistreated simply because you don't understand it or you find it icky or strange. That is your hang up.
I've learned to, it's so hard to get completely away from the stigma of sexuality. Take people that are swingers, for example. Like that's a stigma in this society. Or people that have multiple partners. Like there's a show, I think on HBO or Showtime, where people live in a polyamorous relationship. And it seems like it's out on the fringe. And so I just have to remind myself that these are perfectly acceptable ways for people, as long as you're not, I don't think people should be cheating on their partners.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, as long as it's consensual and legal, I don't have a problem with it. But religion still tries to rear its ugly head in my thinking, and it's a constant battle with these things. And I'll be honest with you, like, even with smoking and drugs and alcohol, I still don't do any of that because I really have no desire for it.
Well, I don't think you're.
Yeah.
I understand what you're coming at. Not drinking and not smoking, that's no big deal. But sometimes, I understand what you're saying. Sometimes you still have that old urge, that instinct that pops up and says, "Ooh, I don't know about this subject. Ooh, I don't know."
Yeah.
And you got to go, well, hold on a second here. What's really the big deal here? Is there really a problem?
Exactly.
But people change over time too. I mean, even after I had admitted to myself that I was completely faithless, I'll admit I had issues with homosexuality that were, I think, partly driven not necessarily by upbringing, because even my mother thought I was a little too hardline, but I think it had to do with being still having some leftover adolescent feelings about it. Like, ooh, if they're gay, they might make me gay.
That permeating cultural.
Yeah, and I remember having a lengthy argument with a young woman. She was the same age as I was, about 9 or 10 years ago, about the merits of gay couples being allowed to adopt.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And at the time, I said that I didn't think that it should be allowed necessarily, and they're like, well, why not? They're loving parents.
Right.
And at the time I said, you're a child who is being put up for adoption.
Mm-hmm.
You have no choice in necessarily who adopts you. And then along comes a couple that is not socially accepted. And then immediately you are not socially accepted because you are the child, adopted or otherwise, to gay parents. Why should that child be the, beta example? For anything to become accepted, it has to become more common.
Yeah.
But for the initial group, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
We're not talking about people fighting for civil rights here. We're talking about people fighting for civil rights at the expense of children.
Yeah, that was your concern. You're focusing on the children, how it would affect them specifically.
Yeah, and although there's still part of me that thinks that might have been unfair to those children, I am less hardline on that now. I understand that if there are good parents and children in need of parents, that their sexual orientation shouldn't matter. But there is still a part of me that thinks that some of those children suffer for needlessly.
I see your point.
But, I'm not trying to stir any pots here or make anyone angry who listens to this.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
it was always about the kids for me, less about the sexual orientation of the parents.
Yeah, definitely. And we could use the same line of reasoning with, well, these are Hindu parents, or these are, what's another religious?
Muslim, Buddhist.
Yeah, Muslim, Buddhist. So, I mean, we could take that same type of reasoning and say, well, the kids could be discriminated against or picked on, because they came from this family or whatever. But no, I see your concern. Hopefully the kids. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say what you're saying reminds me of what my father used to say when, I don't hear him say it anymore, but a few years back he was still saying that he believed interracial marriage wasn't wrong, but it's hard on the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I understand there are flaws and weaknesses in my previous stance, but I don't think I was all wrong. I just think maybe my approach was wrong.
Yeah, it's probably more the approach should be, let's get society's ass in gear about not having its head up its ass.
Yeah.
Because kids are going to suffer, and why? What for?
And I think that's a big drive of my channel, is I want people to get over their hang-ups with their problems with race or sexuality or religion. Like, I'll seriously go out to eat with a hardcore Christian as long as they're not like being a total dick. I mean, I really don't care. I mean, I've got friends that are Christians. I've found out that they talk to me less and less over time, probably because of my Facebook posts and stuff. But I mean, we all need to get over the hang-ups of the differences, and I think that's one of my big reasons for doing what I do.
Yeah, I think it goes back to a persecution complex, though. Like, I mean, even though you're not persecuting them necessarily, and I think it happens a lot with Christians who try to befriend atheists, if they were friends with you before, then their maintaining a friendship, I think sometimes has this double intention of they're going to bring you back to the path of the righteous.
Right.
And then they'll stop talking to you more and more the more they realize how far gone you are. Or, like, in their assessment anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas, if they were not your friend previously and they become your friend, they claim that they see some light within you that must be saved, and they have this hero complex about it.
Yeah.
That's true.
When I left when I left all of this religious baggage behind, and like you say, it's still kind of the instinct rears up every now and then. The way I try and deal with that instinct, I try to go back to an impartial, practical approach to whatever the discussion is at the time or whatever the issue is. So there are some things that I don't really get. For instance, I don't know if you've ever heard, in particular, I remember Avery and Heather Henderson, they run a couple podcasts. Ardent Atheist?
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
Okay, well, if you ever listen to it, you'll quickly find out that they are not sexual prudes at all.
Okay.
He comes from a religious background. I'm not sure about her. And they are in what you call polyamorous relationships where they have more than one partner.
Right.
And I'll listen to them talk sometimes, and I don't really understand how a person would feel kind of settled in that light.
Right.
To me, it would seem like you're always waiting for their shoe to drop, right? Like, who's going to break up with who's going to have a fight with who.
Yeah, but you can feel that way in a singular relationship anyway. Like, I mean, if you're not secure in your relationship with your single partner, like with one partner, you can have that same paranoia with two partners.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think the difficulty would be managing jealousy.
Well,
right.
The approach I take, like I say, is practical. It's not a relationship that I would be comfortable in, probably, so I'm not going to understand it. So rather than trying to understand it, I'll just understand enough that this is a human being who says that this is what they need. They're not hurting anyone, so maybe I don't need to understand exactly.
I've had discussions with women about polyamorous or like multiple partner relationships, and I kind of try to always take the devil's advocate approach because I love stirring up the pot when I'm around. The more prudish the individual, the more I like to kind of push the envelope. And the question always falls to, well, if I'm not able to satisfy his every need, then obviously I'm not good enough or this or that. And it's always that kind of argument.
Yeah.
And my question to them is, does your partner now satisfy every single need that you have? And then the usual response is an initial knee-jerk yes. And I'm like, really? So he has interest in everything you want to talk about. He watches every movie you want to watch.
Yeah.
You don't have any girlfriends or any guy friends that you talk to or go to for advice. Everything in your life is satisfied and fulfilled by this one individual. And they're like, no, obviously. I have friends and I have people I talk to and have my confidence. And I'm like, if one person can satisfy every need you have, then you don't need anybody else.
Right.
So why do you need any other relationship in your life? Obviously, there are certain things that, you need to satisfy outside of just the monogamous relationship.
Yeah.
So I try to take that approach.
Well, don't forget too that a lot of interactions, relationships are a two-way street. So, you may feel like your needs are being met by one or two people or whatever, but maybe you want to be that for someone else. So a lot of people, they're a friend to someone because they want to share with that person. Yeah. They want to be there for that person. So a lot of it is giving. Mm-hmm. So that's the way I see it. So.
But it's also better than the alternative. Like, if Emery was not openly living the way he is with multiple partners and discussing with them openly, and everyone knew what was going on. A guy like him, maybe he's just not built for monogamy. Like, it's a possibility that he would just be cheating on people, always ruining his relationships. Would that be a better alternative? I don't think so. And I've seen plenty of that behavior. Maybe if these people in smaller towns could be people just not understand it, like I say, but accept the fact that he's not, he or she's not a bad person for living that way, maybe it'd be less problems for everybody.
Yeah, it's more acceptable for guys to cheat and to sneak around and lie and to sleep with whoever. I mean, it's actually more accepted than to actually be honest and to have a consensual agreement.
Yeah.
Isn't that strange?
I don't know if it would be more accepted. I just think that the detriment is not as heavy. Like, I mean, I think if a guy cheats, I think if a guy cheats,
who you're cheating with and who catches you.
Yeah, well, I suppose so. There are a number of factors, so it's really hard to simplify it. But I mean, if a guy cheats, I'm pretty certain people trash talk him and call him a male slut or whatever. But to the guy, whatever, it really doesn't affect his job or anything, or affect his life or how he views himself. In a lot of ways, some guys can wear it as a badge of honor.
Right.
Your woman liked me better than you. But on the flip side, the woman gets really heavily, hammered by society. You're a horrible person, you're a homewrecker, and so on and so forth. So I think it's the consequence that isn't equally distributed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of shifting going on over the last 50 years about men and women and the differences that they have on those issues. But overall, I don't know if it's maybe more accepted is not the exact term. Maybe it's more expected.
Right.
That men are going to be running around. And my concern for people is just that, when you're younger, you're not going to know your desires as well as when you get older. And some of those desires are also going to change. And I have noticed that people have a hard time wrapping their head around that. So one way or the other, let's say they start out in a monogamous relationship, they get older and they start realizing they would rather be with more than one person, or this person is no longer doing it for them. That's a real concern. Society should learn to deal with that up front rather than expecting it to go on behind closed doors and in the shadows.
Yeah. And I've heard of so many relationships, marriages, or just people breaking up in general, that end because someone cheated or someone was just attracted to someone, or they messaged him on Facebook. It's like, or the guy looks at porn. It's like, seriously, you're going to break up a marriage because he looks at porn, and he's not even straight. To me, that is insane. But there are women that have these, I don't want to offend any ladies out there, but there are some people with insecurity issues.
Yeah.
And they just can't handle the fact that their partner would look at porn, or would flirt with another girl, or cheat. And now, again, I don't condone cheating, but to me, pornography is not in the same.
No, it's not. There are, again, this attitude is changing with education. Like, some women that are educated about it still have a problem with it, but more women understand that it's it's a difference. Like, men with pornography, you know what? I'm told actually that a lot of women look at it too, so I don't even know why I'm saying that.
Right.
Whereas in our area, there's an advocacy group, a radical feminist group, led by a public speaker, I guess is what she would be classified as, feminist named Megan Walker, who goes around giving presentations at colleges and universities, claiming that we live currently in a rape culture, and that if you watch pornography, you support rape. You're encouraging rape.
Wow.
If you hire a prostitute, you are paying a woman to rape her, to be allowed to rape her.
No.
And yeah, she's like really, really out there. But you'd be surprised the amount of applause she gets at the end of a speech. it's quite disturbing to me as a man to listen to, but, you know, that's what it is.
That's because you're a rape encourager.
Yeah, that's me. I can't help myself, man. Once I see a beautiful woman, I gotta walk up to her and be like, "Hey, does this smell like chloroform to you?"
Well, yeah, and like I say, when it comes to listening to people about polyamory, my concern now is I've gotten to the point where it doesn't really shock me anymore. That's more my introduction to hearing about it more on the internet when I was getting used to it. Now, right. my concern, like I say, is just like the other way around, if, say, there's a person in multiple relationships and then they suddenly go, look, at this stage of my life, I'm wanting just one person and I want to focus on one person.
Yeah.
That's got to be difficult for their partners as well. I mean, that's got to be difficult when you've gotten attached in that way. So as long as that transition, as long as they can be honest about it, that's all that matters. Same with the other way around. If you're, I think maybe the fear. What do you think of this? Maybe the fear is that if you allow it, that everyone's going to leave their marriage. Like, you think that paranoia exists?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what's going through people's heads. You hear so much crazy stuff come from the religious right that, even about gay marriage, that it's the downfall of traditional marriage.
Yeah.
I know I talk about homosexuality from time to time on my channel, but today I wanted to briefly touch on marriage equality. This is America. Whether you are religious or unreligious, whether you believe in homosexuality or not, we should understand that every one of us should be entitled to our right to marry the person we love. Our personal religious views should not be the reason of why we oppose gay marriage. Even Bill O'Reilly understands this. What if left-handedness was still seen as unnatural or some type of mental illness or demon possession? What if people who were left-handed could not get married? What if blacks, Mexicans, Asians, or Muslims couldn't get married? We can't deny people their right just because they are a minority group. And don't give me this bullshit that it is equality because a man can marry a woman. There is more than enough evidence that people don't choose their sexual orientation. And regardless, we are denying them their right to marry the person they love. And we are denying them the benefits that come along within a marital relationship. Just to reiterate, our religious beliefs should not be the basis for the opposition of marriage equality for gay people. If you don't believe in gay sex, then don't have gay sex. If you don't believe in gay marriage, don't get married to someone of the same gender. It's just that simple. Really, this shouldn't even be an issue in our modern society, on a personal or on a national scale. Fortunately, the tide has turned and more people do support equal rights for gay marriage. Young people growing up are vastly in support of marriage equality, and people are abandoning their former views.
It's like everything is apparently to these people the downfall of traditional marriage, and then that will be the end of America and the end of life as we know it. But I mean, clearly they're overthinking this way too much. I mean, life is still going to keep going on, and marriage is still going to be, not going to be under threat or anything like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's not going to be a mecca of everyone going to the office for a divorce. Like, some marriages fail. It's not like people just go, hey, I can get a divorce? Woohoo! Let's go get a divorce, because I can.
Right. They support freedom of choice and personal liberty right up to the pulpit, right up to the altar where the marriage certificate gets signed. And I mean, they're all pro-economy, right? They should be all for this, because divorce lawyers would get huge business. Yeah. Huge business.
The lawyers are they're licking their chops.
Yeah. They're hoping for it.
I would like to see polygamous relationships legal. I think it would be nice if people could choose. Okay, I want to be married to more than one person. Outside of that Mormon type thing.
Well, the first response that a person would probably get, I imagine, is like a legal response would be, well, how are you going to legally work that? Because marriage is for the government's sake. It's a legal contract, right? But I think it'd be possible if they opened it up to a new type, like with companies, you can have partnership or you can have corporate.
Right.
Right? So maybe there's a new type of marriage where it's incorporated.
It's incorporated marriage.
I mean, I'm laughing about it because it sounds kind of funny because I'm using the business model. But if it's possible for business, and so often business is used as an analogy for the legal status.
Why don't we take a political angle? We'll just call like multiple marriages like the polyamorous super PAC. You know? It's a super PAC.
It's a super PAC.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you though. When you're approaching a conversation with somebody who is religious and they are disagreeing with you on the particulars of your worldview, if you would be so kind as to give me an example of how you generally approach a conversation with somebody who is new to meeting you and obviously in opposition to your views.
Yeah, well, usually I let them explain their position. Like, usually people bring it up first, and then they'll explain their position. And I try always to, of course, it would take a lot for someone to offend me on that. But I also try to speak to them in a way that they're not going to be offended. I hear a lot of atheists say, well, I don't care if you're offended. Well, the thing about it is, if you offend people, there's less likelihood that they're going to listen to you.
Yeah.
Because we let our feelings, get in the way. And I mean, if people's being an outright dick to me, I'm probably just going to walk off, or I might argue with them or whatever. So I try to always, maintain my cool with them and let them know that it's not that I hate God and just want to sin and all that, because those are the first things that I hear. Like, well, a lot of atheists, they just, they want to sin, or, they hate God, or someone hurt them. There's a few arguments you hear cycled through over and over again. And I have to just say, no, that's really not the case. We're not trying to sin. It's like, oh, looky here. If we act like we don't believe in God, then we can just live however we want. No, that doesn't make any sense. So I try to present it in the most courteous way possible to these people.
Yeah, without pulling your punches, but not making it like a hatred issue. Like, I hate you for your beliefs, but your beliefs are shit.
And I'll tell them. And a lot of times, though, they will get offended by certain things. But, a lot of times people are offended, too, in how you say things. Like, I'll just say, I'm not trying to be mean, but I just find the God of the Bible to be a psychopathic killer. I mean, they're not going to like that, but they want an honest answer from me, so I'm going to give them honesty. It's just up to them if they want to accept my answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that a lot. Sometimes I think I am intentionally antagonistic myself.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm really surprised about is just the magnitude of ignorance that a lot of people have about the content of the scriptures that they adhere to. And more than a few times in my life when I've had a discussion with a theist, specifically Christians, I mostly interact with Christians in our area anyway. If you tell them something is in the Bible, they will argue that it is not, especially if it doesn't fit with their personal view or the view they were raised to have about God.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you open the damn book up and you point out the passage or the parable or whatever, they will either ignore it completely, refuse to look, or just exit the conversation. They don't want to know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or they'll say, well, that's out of context. And so I'll be like, in what context is it ever okay to kill a child for being unruly to their parents, or to stone a man to death for picking up sticks on a Saturday? It doesn't make any sense. In what context would these things ever be acceptable?
Yeah. Well, like literally the last conversation that I had with a diehard Christian, I asked him, what if God commanded you to kill your brother? And the response was, God would never do that. And
right.
I said, what if? It's just a what if question. Like if you ask me, what if I jump off a bridge? Like we're scenario playing here.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, I won't answer. I refuse to answer. God would never do that. And I'm like, God would never do that. Well, how about Abraham?
Yeah, and there's another story in the Old Testament where the guy, I forget his name, he prays that everyone in Israel, it's one of these little mythological stories they have that they take as fact now. That everyone comes to this guy and says, oh, yeah, we still got you, right, Glenn?
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure you're still there.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Every now and then we get a weird noise from the Skype.
Okay.
Yeah, so this guy, everyone comes to him and says, deliver us from these evil military people from some other tribe, I don't know who. And of course he accepts, but then he says to God, if you give me victory, I'll kill and sacrifice to you anything that I see when I come home, the first thing that I see.
Right.
So he goes away and he comes home, and the first thing he sees is, of course, his little girl running out to meet him. Which, that part of the story at least rings true, right? Like, of course your kid's gonna run out to meet you, you dumbass.
Yeah.
So, he gives her enough time to go into the mountains to mourn her virginity, and then he kills her. And the story is like, it is on the note of God's just fine with that.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah, I did a video about that. You're talking about Jephthah. That's in fact, that story was the last straw that I had with Christianity. I literally, after I read that and thought about it, I said, this is it. I'm done. I'm done with this God. I'm done with religion.
Yeah.
And I was right on the verge of completely breaking free anyway, but because I had read the entire book of Joshua and I saw God instruct his followers to kill people over and over. And we're talking entire cities of men, women, and children.
Yeah.
So this story was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I'm like, I'm done. My wife and I both, we were just appalled because, in 30 years of being a Christian, and I said, because my parents took me to church starting when I was 3 years old. So for 30 years, that's all I knew was religion. And I had never heard that story. Why is that?
It's not in the recommended reading.
Yeah, apparently not. I can see why.
Let's open up our devotionals today to the story where Jesus says how to smash children's heads on rocks by holding their ankles. I remember most of my relatives would have devotions. A couple of the families would have them, I don't know if it was before meals or after. I think it was after they would eat. The whole family would get together and they'd read these stories off the note of the Old Testament. And it's funny that those stories were never the ones we were having devotions about.
Yeah.
I do have a question about the Sabbath. Were they supposed to fast for that day? Like, I honestly don't know.
I don't think every Sabbath. There were occasions when they would do fasting for.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to work on those days, so
yeah, that's the thing. You're not supposed to work on it.
So cooking doesn't count as work.
Yeah, it does. I think.
It does?
Yeah, and I think they had to prepare their meals ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that would make sense. I'm
assuming crapping was allowed, even though that can be a lot of work.
Dried meat and bread today, boys. Dried meat and bread.
Even when God rained manna from heaven, if I'm not mistaken, he sent enough, I guess, on Friday to cover the next day, so they didn't have to get out and walk around and pick it up the next day, because that literally was considered work.
Manna bread.
Yummy.
Yeah, no doubt. Have you ever tried that stuff?
Mm-mm.
No.
Now, I wonder if stoning people was work on Sunday, or on the Sabbath. Did they have to wait till the Sunday to stone somebody?
That's a good question. I was just thinking about that the other day. I'm like, you know what? Actually, executing people should be work, right?
Yeah. No doubt.
That gives you a day to run.
No doubt. I've been caught picking up sticks. Well, I'm already working. I might as well jog my ass out of the village and go into hiding.
Time to go hang out with the heathens until this blows over.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. But these things, it just goes right over the Christian's head when you tell them these stories. It's like, you're the crazy one. Yeah. That's what they're thinking like. They can't believe that we would find fault with such stories. And I can't fathom why they don't find fault with it. Because there are a lot of things that bothered me for years as a Christian. And you know what I did? I swept it under the rug. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to trust God because the Bible says he's just and perfect and he's righteous. So I'm just going to trust that he made the right call and totally disregarded those types of things that I found.
Yeah. The one discussion that I think most Abrahamic religious individuals have a hard time reconciling is predestination or predetermination versus free will.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I get into those conversations, they can get really, really crazy because they're like, well, you have choice. You have choice. And I'm like, really? How? If God is real and he's the architect of all time from beginning to end, he knows how the story is going to finish. Then how do I have any choice?
Yeah.
Because everything's always going to lead to the same destination.
Well, it becomes an irrelevant question. Let's say you do have free choice. I've had this discussion. I'm like, choice is now irrelevant because you say God's almighty. So it's like, in theory, let's say from before time began, if God foresaw how everything, because he foresaw how everything was going to be, if he wanted to change one butterfly from pink into blue, and that's the only thing that would change the way everything was going to unfold, could he do it? And the answer, of course, is yes. I'm like, well, then what about every child that's being molested? Couldn't you change that one thing? Wouldn't that one thing have been helpful?
but it's not even that for me. That means that every single individual who ever did anything wrong that got them burnt for it, by their own theology, he was aware of before the creation of the universe, and did nothing to stop them or change that outcome.
It's to me, it's like I have a little girl, and her imaginary friend was Lightning McQueen for a couple of years. The animated character off of the racing, all the cars. Cars. Yeah, so she was always racing Lightning McQueen. Sometimes she was Lightning McQueen. But when you would talk to her, Lightning McQueen's characteristics would change based on the circumstances, because it wouldn't make sense from one circumstance to another, right? Mm-hmm. And that's fine. It's a little child doing it. But when an adult's doing it, it's a little more upsetting.
Yeah, definitely.
So you approach each situation differently, and from what I gather, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of take the approach of asking them questions. And do you find that taking that approach yields more results? Because I always find when you ask people probing questions, sometimes they can come to the determination that what seemed like a good idea in their head doesn't pan out so much when you speak it aloud.
Right. Yeah. Well, most of the people I encounter, I mean, they're pretty hell-bent on maintaining their position. And then, of course, if they can't ever come to, if they can't ever get to the point to where they can see your point, it's like there's a wall there. They're not going to cross over and say, you're right. Even if you show them the most atrocious story and then you explain why this is so terrible, there's still that wall there. And it's like, well, it'll get to the point to where they're like, well, if they say they don't know, they're like, I don't know, but God, God always does what's right or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's usually how it ends up, to where even if they can admit they don't know, and that's usually a tough one right there, because a lot of them think they know God so well. Clearly, even when he says, my ways are not your ways, my thoughts are not your thoughts. Apparently in the Bible, that's what he said. But yeah, even when they can admit that they don't know, they can't ever even think for one moment that their God did something wrong. And that was the breaking point to me when I realized that my God could just possibly do something wrong.
Yeah.
Could do something evil. It all unraveled for me because I've seen these stories and I just could no longer, just dismiss them. But I had that wall up for all those years. But
it's a tough wall. And like you say, even when they are confronted, like, you deconverted, I deconverted. Chris was never a fundamentalist.
No, I kind of had the fortunate perspective that my parents were like, everybody can believe what they want to believe. And
yeah.
So it's not like I had to break through any, really solid wall of faith. My fall away from faith was more instance driven. My sister got ill and passed away of cancer, and then my children were born premature and were hospitalized for the first 3 months of their life. And I fully admit, even in conversations with believers, that the initial fall away from faith for me was just prayers unanswered. And I usually get this, well, your sister's in a better place and no longer suffering, God did her a favor, and your children lived, so God answered your prayer. They always try to take credit for the hard work of the medical staff at the NICU unit they were at.
Yeah, and God always wins. Like, somehow this person's condition got better, or they, this person went into surgery, they came out, oh, thank God. But if someone dies, well, God's will happened there too. They're in heaven or whatever.
Now they're an angel watching over you.
Many Christians believe in miracles. They believe that God, on His own accord, or through the faith and prayers of people, on occasion performs miracles. Obviously, I'm probably not going to convince hardcore miracle-believing Christians that miracles don't happen, and it might actually take a miracle to prove that miracles don't happen. But I did want to give some crumbs for thought. Christians, why is it when an isolated so-called miracle happens, like someone being healed, you give God credit? But when all the other instances of tragedy, of where no miracle happens, you don't dare blame God? Do you honestly believe that God sits idly by and picks and chooses who he will perform a miracle for? Where was God on 9/11? Where was God during Hurricane Katrina? Where was God during the Sandy Hook shooting? Where was God during the Boston bombing? Where is God when parents lose children to disease or accidents? All the while, many of them are praying, fervently praying, in faith. It just doesn't add up. Do not tell me that God works miracles. Miracles are bullshit. There are no miraculous weeping and bleeding statues of Mary. Amputees don't suddenly sprout a new limb. Rebuking storms doesn't make them disappear. And saying, "Money, come to me now," will not make you rich.
Yeah.
Or now they are a prophet of God, survived so that they can bring his glory to others.
Yeah.
It's a win-win situation for them from their perspective.
Yeah.
It becomes a part of your personal identity. Even when you, like you were saying, when you confront them with difficulties that they can't really explain, they will default because it attaches to their parents. It attaches to their idea as parents. It attaches to their sense of who they are. Like, as people who deconverted from fundamentalism, like, I'm sure Glenn has had times when it's been very difficult through that process, because I know it was for me, where I really had to make sure I got a grip on myself.
Mm-hmm. The funny thing that I've found in the past too is, like, when people suffer, when people truly suffer, some people take this almost gleeful approach that God is punishing them for not being righteous.
Oh yeah.
And what I found funny about that is I got into a discussion about that, and I'm like, what about, was it Lot? Somebody who was basically God allowed to be punished by the devil to prove that he would maintain Job, thank you.
Yeah, Job.
And I'm like, well, God has proven that he can allow somebody to suffer for nothing.
Right.
For no wrongdoing. So how do you know these people aren't suffering because God still has a standing bet and he hasn't paid the bookie yet? Like, come on. And they don't like that. They really don't.
Yeah.
No, God would never just let anyone suffer at the devil's hand for the sake. I'm like, have you fucking read the Bible? Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Pick it up. Read the first.
Well, but the only part they want to focus on is on the end when he gets all the good stuff back, because you know how happy people are after God kills, takes away your family and then gives you a bunch of new kids to replace the dead ones.
Yeah.
That's joyous stuff.
Oh, I've heard Christians say, well, he did restore double because they get 2 sets of kids now in heaven. And it's just like, oh, I'm not even going to discuss this anymore. I'm done. It's like they can see no wrong in their God. They literally can see no wrong. And, I can't fathom it now. I'm glad I broke free from all that.
Yeah.
Because,
when you do your channel, you must get people who tune in and give you the comments that are like right on, but you also probably get pushback. What kind of support versus what kind of pushback do you find you get doing this type of channel?
Yeah, most of the interaction is positive. Actually, I would say my worst rated video, and the one that has stirred people up, believe this or not, isn't the videos where I'm attacking Bible stories and God killing people. No, it's about speaking in tongues. I think I've got like 200 something thumbs up on that one, and now I'm down to 38 thumbs down on that video, which usually my ratings are much higher than that, and I'm kind of disappointed. But the Christians apparently have found that that's the video that has ruffled the feathers the most.
Oh, wow.
Saying that speaking in tongues is bullshit. It's like, oh, okay, well, here's all these stories where God's killing people, but let's focus on some kind of feel good, mumbo jumbo that we do over here. And,
it's about maybe identity again, right? Like, I didn't personally, my fundamentalist background is not any kind of Pentecostal or charismatic, but I'm familiar with it because another, like my one cousin, that was what he and his mother were always in those churches. So I went to them quite often. I was always around him, so I'm very familiar. Speaking in tongues in many charismatic churches, if you don't do that, many people in them will even say you're not saved, right?
Say that again. My kid was making a noise in the background. I'm sorry.
In many charismatic churches, speaking in tongues is so central that they see it as a sign you have been saved by God, right?
Yeah, but to them, it's like, it's supernatural proof, I think. Yeah. That's the way I looked at it. Like, okay, if you can speak in tongues, if you can do whatever, laying on of hands, where people fall on the floor, and I still, the whole thing still blows my mind, but they take that as proof that God is living inside of you, therefore you're saved and all that. So it's like a tangible evidence for them, I would say.
Yeah, people want to see. I don't know if you've been able. People are generally too busy to sit around listening to podcasts all the time, but recently we had Robert M. Price on the show.
Yeah.
And I've heard him talking about signs and how many different stories all are pushed into one for even the Gospels, but pretty much the whole Bible is like this. Different traditions, and people want their version of it. And so you get these weird conflicting messages in the same book, the same piece. And
right.
one that just popped into mind when you were talking is about signs and wonders. There's a verse in the middle of a gospel where clearly Jesus is doing all these signs, where Jesus goes, "You're such a wicked generation, you'll get no signs."
Mm-hmm.
And Robert M. Price is like, "What? What is that verse doing there?" And he's like, "Well, there was a time in the church history where people became embarrassed that the magician stories that were so common were being the basic story of Jesus, and a group of them wanted to stop it because it eventually became an embarrassment." So
right.
explanations like that make a lot of sense, right? Like when I was a believer, I would read. I'm sure I read through that, and I never picked up on it. Like, this verse is a complete contradiction to everything else in the story.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
And, Jesus apparently, too, spent his ministry performing signs and wonders. I mean, walking on water, turning water to wine, raising people from the dead, calming thunderstorms, making magic potions, healing potions out of spit and dirt. I mean, the man was doing everything, you know? But, yeah, we have that particular verse there. It's, interesting.
And it's the difference between being taught what to believe and being taught a critical approach to any work, including the Bible. As soon as you have that critical approach and you start moving through a piece more and more, it's easier to see things that just, they don't gel.
Yeah. And so we've got to encourage people to use critical thinking. I mean, we're not trying to force people to deconvert. I think what it is we're trying to equip them with skill, at least motivate them to study, research, and use critical thinking on their own.
Yeah.
And then the rest, I think, will fall into place.
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to deconvert. We just have to do that. I think, and that's what we need to do. And, I've had people tell me that, well, you're just trying to deconvert. You're trying to take people's faith away from them. And I stop and I examine myself because, I mean, I can see why some people might get that point, may feel that way, but that's not really exactly. I mean, really, what people believe is their own business until what they believe harms other people. And that's why I make a lot of videos dealing with social issues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Particularly with gay rights and stuff like that. Okay, so you believe homosexuality is wrong. Fine. Live a heterosexual life. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. It's really simple.
It's that desire to control. On the show, I have gotten into the discussion more than once that I only make one small distinction between religion and ideology, and that is religion is a particular kind and particularly prevalent and dangerous kind of ideology. Like, it's done arguably more damage than any of the other ones. But it's the same essence of having a certain way of thought locked in, and everything needs to conform. Mm-hmm. And eventually that leads people to try and make other people conform to it. And like you say, if these people were not, they're not hurting anyone else, it would not seem as important to address issues like gay rights. Because if they weren't trying to strip them of the same rights that they have, then who would care? But they are.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think that's what it boils down to, for the most part.
And I think online as a YouTuber, at least my impression is you've been able to find lots of allies and friends, people who maybe don't do the same thing that you do, but who interact with you and support you. You probably support them.
Yeah. Now, who's this?
I've just noticed a lot of people. Like, the clip I got from you, I think, was from when you were doing the Throne of Reason.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I quit doing that a while back, but yeah, I was doing that show for a while.
Yeah, and I've seen videos. It was quite a while ago, but I saw some videos. I think where you were even talking about it, that people were helping each other out, and you were helping out other people who were trying to get more people aware of their channels.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to be doing, because I used to do a lot of shout outs and stuff like that, and I'm going to start doing like this monthly thing on my channel where I highlight the atheist of the month.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So, because I realized something the other day, I'm like, I just got out of the habit of doing shout outs and stuff like that, and then I've not been doing those not the podcasts, but the live hangouts. So I've not been promoting other people nearly as much as I used to, but I think that's really important that people do that and help because, just take it. I mean, if you're a big channel, for example, giving a shout out for someone like me or any other small channel, that helps us tremendously.
Yeah.
And it's really important to do that.
And when the message is more important than the paycheck, so to speak, it's all, for all the antics he does, the amazing atheist, with his channel, I think that he does have some issues that he wants to promote or bring to attention.
Right.
So one day, odds are, he will either stop doing what he's doing or he will recede. But if he has brought attention to a few other people who themselves have done the same, then the causes he's trying to bring attention to can still live on beyond him. Big picture.
Yeah, definitely. And, I watch his stuff quite a bit, The Amazing Atheist, and I used to think, this guy's such a dick, but I mean, I like him. He's entertaining and he does hit on a lot of different issues and stuff. It's not, I think there's a mix of, of him doing it just for entertainment and then, to address issues. He talked about this false notion of rape culture. And then he talks about, other issues too, other social issues. But, I get some good nuggets from his stuff from time to time.
Yeah, I agree. He's a smart guy. I'm not trying to downplay him as completely.
Yeah, I know.
Somebody who sits at a puddle and farts for attention.
Now, see, my parents would never. A lot of people would never watch him. I'm hoping that the people that won't watch him will watch my channel. But right, I would say there's probably not a lot of difference in the way I handle, but maybe just enough to where people that might not watch him would watch my channel,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you guys have completely different personalities, so the impact of what you're talking about comes across in a very different way. With him, I think because he's very boisterous and, there, like you say, there are videos where he just goes, "Look, I'm going to be serious on this video," and he'll just bring it right down. But yeah, I think a lot of people that disagree with him would be turned off just because he's always jumping around and being so excited. I think you're right, and maybe it's the style that would do that. But yeah,
and I really like. I don't know if you watch Dusty Smith. I really like his stuff too. And believe it or not, I used to think he was a dick as well. It's funny. And I watch people. I will watch people that, I like all different styles, really, honestly. I mean, I watch The Amazing Atheist, the Preaching Atheist. I used to watch The Thinking Atheist a lot, but I don't think he puts out as much stuff anymore.
The Thinking Atheist?
Yeah.
Yeah, for his YouTube channel, maybe not. I remember I've seen some videos of his too that I really liked, but I haven't really been tuning into his YouTube channel for a while.
Yeah. I mean, he does a lot of really good animated type stuff. And, those are really powerful, I think. But, and I like to support a lot of the younger and newer atheists on YouTube because, we need to get them more well known. Like, there's a guy named Donnie Winter and his channel's only got like 700 people.
Yeah.
So, and he should have a lot more. He talks a lot about gay rights and stuff like that. But I'm just surprised that he's still at that level of subscribers. And then you have someone like The Amazing Atheist that has over 500,000.
Yeah.
Or whatever he has now. It's a lot. So, yeah, I would.
Sometimes it just takes, this is what I'm told by people who are really big avid YouTube believers, is that the people who are big got just one break that suddenly hit and their video went viral and then people started subscribing.
Yeah.
So it's like what you're talking about, circulating and being interconnected by giving each other shout outs. That could be the break. That could be where the viral video starts for you or for someone else. And then in turn, that person with that success, if they give out shout outs, that promotes something bigger than any one person.
Yeah, definitely. definitely.
Well, I gotta tell you, I enjoy your channel. I watch everything you bring out. So I know that you had that, I think it was Atheist YouTuber of the Year you had, right?
Yeah. What do you think about my my choice for that? Do you watch Jacqueline Glenn?
Well, I subscribed to her, but I haven't had time really to get into her stuff yet. I've only watched a couple of videos, but I like them.
Oh, she is so hilarious.
Sense of humor will get you a long way to be able to bring your message across in a way that doesn't irritate people as much.
Yeah, and she's you can tell that she thinks on her feet very well. She's very witty. And, I think I had only a couple of people. It's like, no, I don't like her. But for the most part, people's like, yeah, I love Jacqueline. And then some other names people threw out was the Preaching Atheist and Dusty Smith. And, so I'm like, yep. Yeah. So I agree. And, and honestly, I felt bad after making the video. I have regrets all the time. I'll just be honest. And I thought, I'm just going to do a YouTuber of the month now because I don't want people to feel like this person is the best. And I mean, I just felt like her particular content, the way she did it was kind of stand out for me.
Yeah.
But I want to highlight other people, and I don't want people getting the impression that I think she's head and shoulders above everyone else. So
yeah.
I'm going to do this month, YouTuber of the month thing. I think hopefully from here on out. And, in fact, I was going to make it today. I may still do that. So look for that. And, you probably won't be surprised on who I pick.
Well, it's a good idea. I'll look forward to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I sent you a message on my YouTube account. I started a channel under Mr. Dragonbeard. And that was before I started the podcast. And it was when I got my new Mac. Right? It was my first Mac.
Yeah.
And so I started doing videos, and I didn't make many. And it turns out that making YouTube videos can be a lot of work.
Yeah. I think some people just literally turn on the webcam and they rant and they turn it off. But that's not how I do it. I literally spend hours because I research, I read, I script a lot of my stuff. Not all of it, but I script a lot of it because it helps me in the editing process.
Yeah.
Because damn, I'll have a lot of fuck ups where there's uhs and ums and just nonsense where I get off on these rabbit trails and stuff.
Yeah.
And
I get that. We don't script what we do here, and I get off on tangents all the time. Then I've got to edit it later. I don't really cut stuff out, but the more I ramble, the more I need to edit.
Yeah. And so I'll be doing this all day. Like if I don't have some type of script, and I don't follow it always 100%, but pretty close. But that helps me. And so if anyone out there that does YouTube channels, that's just a little tip. Scripting it out ahead of time helps.
Yeah.
And you would think doing the script would take more time, but it actually is faster than having to go back and edit the video, I think. Well, at least for me. So.
Well, I think sometimes that's also the difference between the fact that your videos will range from, like 2 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And some people, they'll have like a 20-minute video.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think the difference might just be that you put down the points you want to say, and you're able to, like you say, get that in editing and move it down to size.
Yeah, there's so many videos. I don't have time because I've got 2 kids at home with me, and there's just so many videos that I can't watch due to time restrictions. So if you make a 20-minute video, I might not be able to watch it. And I really want to encourage the YouTube community, especially the atheists out there, to try to make them, it's okay to do them frequently, but if you make them a little shorter, that's even better. And statistically, videos do better if they're 6 minutes or less. So I won't go over 6 minutes. And you go back and look at my first video where I'm rambling on about coming out of religion. 25 minutes I ramble on. Can you believe that? 25 minutes. I would never do that now.
It's almost, compared to the videos now, it's almost a diatribe.
Yeah.
Well, that's the learning curve though, right? My first video out, or my first podcast episode was just me. I was kind of getting everything started.
Yeah.
And I was just reading through some different news articles. And then at the end of it, I went after Dave Silverman. It's like, well, start out small. President of American Atheists.
Do you like David?
I don't hate him personally. It's not a personal hatred. I just want to clarify that. But I have a problem with his behavior.
Yeah.
I think that he is there's people disagree with me, that's fine. But I think his behavior over a number of years shows that he is very much about promoting himself. And I don't like that. I really don't. And I guess it was set off by the fact that he went onto a show by a guy named Justin Vicula, and was telling him that your friends are shit. Like, this is what he was saying, literally. Like, your friends are shit. The stuff that you're involved in is all shit. And he just kept saying shit over and over again. It's like, this is the president of American Atheists? Like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I like David, but sometimes I think, well, I don't get into arguments with people about different atheists. That's my personal thing a lot of times. You know, if you notice, I've never made a video like bitching about another atheist YouTuber.
Yeah, I noticed you're actually very positive, despite the fact that some people probably paint your message as negative. You're positive.
Yeah. And, you know, that doesn't mean that I'm not thinking something like, oh, what the fuck are they thinking?
Yeah.
And there's been some atheists that's just blown my mind, but I honestly turned a blind eye to it, at least until at this point, because there's so much, I've seen so much worse, I guess, from religion. I mean, we've got kids dying because they're told that they're a nasty sinner, and they literally commit suicide.
Sexuality is complicated, but it shouldn't be boring. Unlike my video that I tried to make a couple of days ago. Well, here, just watch the clip. Polysexuality is sexual attraction towards multiple genders. Pansexuality, or omnisexuality, is sexual attraction towards all genders. Asexuality is lack of sexual attraction to anyone. Androphilia is sexual attraction to men or masculinity. And gynephilia is sexual attraction to women or femininity. Oh, yeah, I don't want to bore you with a bunch of definitions. Look, we're all different. Some of us are straight, most of us are straight, some of us are gay, some of us are bisexual. And then there's a ton of other definitions out there. Essentially, there's any combination of people who like the same sex, the opposite sex, or any type of a third gender or whatever. It can get very complicated. Sexuality is not black and white. There are many different shades of gray, pardon the expression, but there are many different shades of sexuality. I mean, it's just the way we are. We're a very complex sexual creature. You have to discover what you are, what your likes, what your dislikes are, what your fetishes are, what your sexual orientation is. That's just part of life. You have to discover these things. Accept what you are. Embrace it. Enjoy it. Even if other people don't get it, they don't like it, they hate on you, whatever, that's their fucking problem. You need to be comfortable with you. You should also be comfortable with other people. Unless, of course, they're a pedophile or they're a rapist or something like that. Anyway, I'm rambling on now. Go have some sex. Go have a quickie. You listen to me do the video. Go have some fun. Seriously.
So
I
focus. Yeah, it's unforgivable what religion has done. And but I mean, people can change, and that's my message. I hear a lot of people say, well, they'll never change. I disagree. I think people can change. I used to be anti-gay. Not me. I wasn't verbally mean to people, but the way I felt in my heart, I just thought they were nasty,
same here,
dirty. Yeah. So people can change their thinking and how they treat people. So I focus on that. But I mean, there's some stuff there's some atheist YouTubers. I will not mention names, but some of them are just flat out dicks to people all the time. And I'm thinking, wow,
Yeah. And you wonder, how is this supposed to make things easier to try and open up the dialogue? Like, I mean, there's a time and a place for being, being, blunt and forward.
Definitely.
But if you just go around doing it all the time, it's the same thing. Like, isn't this eventually going to make it more difficult to get anything talked about in a meaningful way?
Yeah, and there's sometimes I go back and read some of my comments. I'm like, I probably shouldn't have said that. And I try not to, insult people. Like, I know some people take it, some things I say is insulting, but I'm really not. Like, someone the other day said, I'll pray for you. And I said, too bad I can't think for you. And he's like, why do you resort to criticism? I mean, I wasn't trying to be critical, but I guess he took it that way. I said what I did because I want people to think, and he was offended by that. But, yeah.
Well, I've tried to make that distinction with people too. When I talk about not being hateful or overly negative, I'll tell them, I'm not telling people pull punches. There are times when I'm accused of being negative because I am very blunt about something, but it's because I think it's the time and the place.
Well, yeah.
And I expect, you know what? And I expect better from people who are not tied up in religious dogma to get their head out of their ass every now and then.
yeah, definitely. Well, too, like, you've heard this people that accuse atheists of being intolerant. Like, well, you're being intolerant of intolerance. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm intolerant of intolerance. And they say, well, that's it. You're being a hypocrite. And so you'll hear people like Fisher, they say, well, the real intolerant people are those atheists over there. And, granted, I mean, there's intolerant people in all walks of life, in all religious and non-religious groups. But, you know, I'm going to call people out. If they're overly hateful and bigoted, I'm going to call them out. And if you call me intolerant or a bigot for that, then go ahead, because their behavior, people like Brian Fisher and John Hagee, and other people like that, their behavior is very harmful. So if I'm mistaken for being intolerant and an asshole because of what I say about them, fine, so be it. I'll, you know.
You can live with that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the way I try to explain to people is that the way I see it is there's different types of personalities involved in what's going on, right? So, though there are some people out there who will avoid fights at any cost, but they're very knowledgeable and they're willing to talk about what they know as long as it's a completely non-conflict oriented situation. There's people who bring humor to it. They're really good at making you laugh your ass off while you're talking about stuff that normally would make you cry.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be. We shouldn't look at someone who's not exactly like ourselves or our group and go, you're not like us exactly, so you're not doing it right. Try and see what anyone can bring to the table as far as education, improving people's quality of life, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Could you imagine more Joel Osteens, though, in the atheist camp?
Joel Osteen, now, I haven't actually listened to him. Isn't that really conservative minister down south?
Well, he is from the South, but he took over his father's church, I think, after he passed away. But he's always super positive. He's like, God bless you folks. He's like, isn't God good? And this is a great day and the sun is shining. He's always wearing a smile.
Huh.
And,
well, I'm not against his positivity.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would disagree with him on some of what he's teaching is positive.
Yeah, but you don't hear him bitching about atheists or gay people. He just doesn't do it. So I'll probably never make a video about Joel Osteen because I don't care. Okay, he believes in God and I don't even think he believes, if you go back and watch some videos, he's been on news shows and stuff where, I think he was on, Larry King or something, and he's basically said before that Jesus wasn't the only way. I don't want to state that for certain, but it seemed to be what he was indicating. Oh, wow. That, and that God is the judge and he's not going to judge people. I like his approach. He's one of the few ministers that I actually respect because I think he's a good, decent person. But, I mean, he's mega wealthy, and of all we know, he does it for the money. I'm not going to accuse him of that, but, I mean, we just don't know.
Yeah, if with a person like that, it's easier to keep it on the topics you disagree on rather than talking about the actual person and the particular words that are coming out of their mouth. Because some of these guys, they are full of vitriol and hatred.
Yeah.
The minister I grew up with, who's now the assistant minister I mentioned earlier at the church I grew up in, he was constantly on, like, it would be like, this church building, we just got some money all gathered, it's great, let's pray to the Lord about it. And by the way, those gay people are trying to destroy the church. Every topic always had a little mention about gay people.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe he's got some kind of issue there or what, but you can't help but wonder when it comes up that often.
It's funny that a topic that's so little talked about in the Bible. I'm going to be doing a video soon on the Beatitudes. I think I'm going to call it Christians, Do You Need a Beatitude Adjustment? Because here's a list of things that Jesus said Christians should act like. And honestly, I don't see these things.
No.
I'm looking at this list and I say, no, throw this list away. Here's their list. Let's bitch about atheists. Let's bitch about gay people. Let's bitch about Obama and Democrats and whatever else. It's like their list doesn't line up with Jesus's list.
Right.
Then you look at the fruit of the Spirit list over there, and I think it's Galatians: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, long suffering. All of those things. I'm like, no, I don't.
That sounds like a great idea for a video. That sounds like one that's gonna You look through the material, and it's going to jump out and give you everything you need.
Yeah. And I won't even have to script this one. I'll be like, oh, here's the list. Like, what's going on, guys? Like, you know, you're more concerned with these things. Jesus didn't even mention anything about gay people. I mean, and yet they make their mission all about gay. It's everything comes back to, well, those homosexuals.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we've got global warming, but it's because of the homosexuals. Because God's
earthquake,
judging.
Earthquake, homosexuals did it. Well, they say I'll rock you all night long. I guess the gay people must mean something, a different scale than AC/DC or whoever was saying that. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
So I want to hit them like, you know, the preaching atheist, he does videos where he will highlight passages in the Bible and show them the absurdity, like, well, here's the Bible contradicting itself. Here is where God did this, and this contradicts his character, or this proves he's not really God, or this proves Jesus isn't God, and all this stuff. And he'll do videos like that. And so this is a different twist on taking the Bible. It's taking the Bible and saying, Christians, this is word for word what you're supposed to be doing. What's up? Like, your behavior doesn't line up with this. And it's trying to get them to think and to prioritize and stuff, their interactions with their fellow humans.
Yeah.
Because that's my real issue, is how they treat people that are different.
Right. And, you know, the secret of it is that everyone's actually different because no one fits a cookie cutter.
Yeah.
I've known people that have gone to church and they have gone through that, what you're talking about, hating themselves and just, you know, destroying themselves inside because they're gay.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been raised their whole life by their community they knew, the family they grew up in, even their own parents telling them that anyone who feels this way is evil and lost, and they're trying to destroy God. This, like, you know, I can't even imagine the psychological harm that this does to somebody who feels the only way that they can feel naturally satisfied and happy in life is with someone of the same sex. Like, how would you escape that harm? There's no way. Until on some level as an adult you heal by cutting that stuff out and just finding a way of replacing it with something good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sad that a lot of people have to deal with that and stuff. And I've watched a lot of documentaries about stuff like that too. And it's there's a really good one that's actually a religious one called "For the Bible Tells Me So."
Yeah.
And I recommend that to anyone, whether you're a Christian or an atheist. And I'm particularly interested in religion and sexual type stuff like that because that's really the biggest area that religion tries to control people is with their sexuality.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest, I would say.
God's very obsessed with what people do with their naughty parts.
Yeah, apparently. Like, he gave them to us, but apparently we have to follow this strict list of do's and don'ts.
Now, Thomas, I have given you this big wiener in between your legs. Now, I know it only really likes other wieners, but that is wrong. I gave it to you, but it's wrong just the same. Maybe God's a sadist. Maybe he is real, and he's just like the most twisted sadist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And of course they'll demonize like masturbation and lustful thoughts, or I don't even like call them lustful thoughts. They're just normal thoughts. I mean, every guy and girl has, and religion demonizes so many normal, natural things.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand that. They're obsessed.
It's a hang-up. You're definitely right. It's definitely a hang-up. If they would relax, take a breath, and at least even if they didn't really get it, they could just be like, oh, wow, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Well, I've been watching a number of channels for some time. Yours in particular I enjoy.
What are your top favorites?
My top favorites. Well, I watch a couple of comedy ones on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
Those are hit and miss. I find with comedy on YouTube.
Yeah.
They'll have like really good stuff and then like stuff I just have no interest in for like a month.
Yeah.
But let's see. I've got you. I do listen to. I have an amazing atheist. There's a couple I used to listen to who aren't around anymore, or at least they don't seem to do anything. For instance, I listened to some stuff from the Woolly Bumblebee. She's a little bit more active in the men's rights movement, but she does have stuff about atheism, but she hasn't been active in a long time. There's Robin Dupree.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know her?
Yeah. I used to have some episodes with her with my Throne of Reason show.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you know Rational Warrior by any chance?
That doesn't sound familiar.
He's not as regular as you. The YouTube channel is just one of the things he does. He's a skeptic and atheist rapper. He's a hip-hop artist.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's been on the show. And
what's the channel again? And I'll look him up.
Rational Warrior, all one word.
Okay. Yeah, I'll listen to his stuff.
I particularly like the part where he has one on Oprah. He talks about when she's trash-talking atheists.
Yeah?
Yeah. He does not hold punches on that video.
I've never even seen the clip where she was talking about atheists.
I've only seen it a couple of times, but she clearly is very aggressive in her stance. Like
Really?
Even her position, the way she's sitting, she leans forward. Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought she would give a rat's ass, really. That's what I would have thought.
I think she was caught off guard as much as the guest was by the development of the conversation.
Yeah.
And it just kind of came tumbling out. So that's, let's see, who else did I listen to? I don't know. Some of them, I don't really separate them into sections, right? So, there was the Almighty Atheists. I know that they're atheists, clearly. But again, they haven't done a show in a while. That was kind of more of a collective of people.
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch any of their stuff?
Yeah, I was on maybe
right.
a few of the episodes on that one too.
Yeah.
I think they took a break as well. I think people just get busy with stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Once my kids started going back to school and stuff, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. People have different things, and I have other projects.
Schedule. Yeah, you have. Yeah, and I've said that to people. I've even had guests on the show, and they'll later on go, "Oh, I still haven't." This has been like months later. I still haven't listened to that episode. And it's like, you know what? That's fine. I know you have other stuff you're doing. There's only so much time in the day, and everyone has their own interests. It's great.
Yeah.
Anton Hill. Do you know him?
I don't think so. Mm-mm.
His productions are not as concisely put together like yours. Like I say, he doesn't script them. But he does a vlog once a month, and he talks about, he's more inquisitive. That's the thing I love about him. He has these questions,
mm-hmm.
and he's very unashamed and very unassuming in his questions he'll ask. And he believes in doing, research. He'll correct himself later if he was wrong about something.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And recently he started doing interviews. So that, I've seen a couple that look really good. So it's interesting.
Can I recommend someone else? I don't know. Are you familiar with, the Messianic Manic?
Yes, I have him also. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think he's one of the more into, I don't even like using these terms, but he's one of my favorites. And I think he's very intellectual. I'll just put it that way. Let's see. Of course,
he's also pretty funny sometimes with his reactions he gives them.
Yeah, true. He does. Sometimes he's real serious. Most of the time he's real serious. It would be cool just to see him kind of let loose every now and then a little more.
Yeah.
But I really think he's one of my favorites. And he keeps his videos short too. I'll be real honest with you. I don't really talk too much about the people that have who I patterned my channel after. Because it's still me, but people that have influenced me a lot would be the Messianic Manic. And another guy, he don't really do a lot of stuff anymore. The Barking Atheist.
Okay, that guy, and I'm not familiar with him.
Yeah. And then of course Dusty Smith. I see myself as kind of like a hybrid of Messianic Manic, the Barking Atheist, and Dusty Smith. in fact, you believe this or not, but most people have compared me more to Dusty Smith than any other character. They said, yeah, but you're a little nicer than him, or something like that. But that's the YouTuber that a lot of people, and I'm like, well, thank you,
It's a compliment, yeah.
Yeah, I guess they're trying to give me a compliment. He's pretty popular, but that's the one where people say, yeah, you remind me of Dusty Smith, so.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you mean. Before I started podcast, I listened to a number of shows, and then in particular, when all the infighting started, there was some that immediately shone forward to me that were, they weren't just aggressive, they're very, I think, very forward about what they did or did not know. Mm-hmm. They were fair about how they would treat their opponents. And that wasn't important to me. If you're just going to call your opponents evil people, that is not what I'm in this for.
Yeah.
And so for me, if you ever want to listen to podcasts that continue probably to influence me, Reapso Radio, and The Angry Atheist, both by Reed Payton, who some people for some reason hate. I'm not really sure why. And also, what's that?
I'll look into those. Yeah. The Angry Atheist, and what was the first one?
Reapso Radio. So the difference between those two is that The Angry Atheist, he interviews even just everyday Joes that he finds online, and they're an atheist, and he'll do an interview with them.
Nice.
Yeah. And then he's also had big people like Seth Andrews from The Thinking Atheist on it. So it's this huge range. The other one is a live show that they do every Tuesday. And so that's kind of neat to hear all the mistakes. And the other one would probably be, you can find it at Apartment J at A-News. They talk to a lot of big guests and a lot of little people too. It's just a very unassuming style I like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've heard of, I have, because I've been on a live hangout before with a guy from Apartment J. Is that what it is?
Yeah, Brian Allen.
Yeah. So, I've only met him one time, but, and he offended someone on the hangout, like he offended this girl, and she called him a dick or an asshole or something, and, I don't know, I don't even remember what he said, but apparently he, offended this girl in 30 seconds time. It was funny. But I'll check that one out too. Now, is this guy the Angry Atheist? Is he angry? Is that his thing?
No, he just does that as the name because everyone says we're angry all the time.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of like the idea of the show, is that he has people on there to talk to kind of dispel this myth that atheists are just a bunch of angry jerks.
Oh, I see. Yeah. And then, of course, you've got this guy here. I think his name is pronounced Hemant Mehta, the Friendly Atheist.
Oh, yes, yeah. I have not listened to a lot of his stuff, but the stuff that I do run into about him, the stuff I've seen, I do like his attitude.
Yeah, he's one of the more positive.
Yeah, exactly.
And he smiles a lot. He's more like the Joel Osteen of atheists, I'd say. That's what I'll label him.
There you go.
Yeah, so he tries to approach everything from more of the positive.
And, I don't need people to be positive all the time, as long as their overall target is to be positive, like improvement from, you should be learning stuff while you're doing your material as well. Right? If you think that it's just, like, as someone who's running a podcast, I am learning something from every guest. I think that's pretty normal for someone who's not a jerk.
Yeah.
Or maybe I am a jerk and I'm just in denial about it. I don't know, but I think I'm okay.
No, you don't seem to be. I wouldn't think it would.
Yeah, and the only real video project that I really put together when I was running my video channel was I put together a 4-minute clip. Okay, so let me just back up. Some people think that some people who are really ultra feminists think that sometimes when they talk to me that I am anti-woman because I don't comport with that title.
Right.
I don't want anything to do with it. So at one point I did look into the men's rights movement. The big channel that they have was, or still is, Voice for Men. And I listened to some of their podcasts, and I was so disturbed. I mean, I really wanted them to be a good group, right? I didn't go into it with assumption. So I took this 4-minute clip that I heard on a random podcast that they had put out, where they go from talking about a mother, there's a news story, a mother called the police because her son took a Pop-Tart out of the kitchen without permission. So,
wow.
Yeah, a really ridiculous story. So I can see why they wanted to talk about it. But then they go, in the next 4 minutes, they build up to how single mothers are going to put feminist regimes in power, and men are going to be lined up in the street and shot in the back of the head. And and they're ranting and raving about this for 4 minutes. And these aren't just two Joes; these are like two of their key guys. And so I just took the 4 minutes, unedited in any way, took the whole thing, and I put it to. I made it look like it was flickering with a picture of one of those old propaganda Soviet film, like pictures of Soviets staring up at the big red star or whatever. I made it look like it was an old projector. You hear these guys going on and on about this regime that's going to come. But
wow, wild stuff.
That's my only project, and it also has. I think that one has more dislikes than likes on it for people who run across it. That's what happens, people polarize. That's not what I'm after. I'm not trying to polarize people. I'm trying to get people on the show who inspire conversation, inspire thought. Anyways, Apostasy Now. That's why you're on the show, is I think that you are somebody who is willing to step out of what you've been told is expected of you. You don't just conform, you speak honestly.
Yeah, well, I do my best anyway.
I've had you for an hour and 45. I should probably let you go because I can hear your family's there.
Yeah, and luckily though, they've been pretty quiet this whole time. So, which is tough for them because they're kids.
You know, I've told people that I don't mind if children are heard in the background. I am not one of these people that thinks that children are a nuisance to society. They're a part of life.
Yeah.
You know, so people should learn to deal with it. I love kids. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I don't get to see her as often as I like because there's still custody issues being worked out.
Yeah.
But if she were here while I was recording, I would be fine with that.
Yeah. Well, I tell them, like, just be quiet in the background, you know. If you want to get on the iPad, just go in the other room and play it, and which I thought was a good idea, you know, but they're like, no, we don't want to play on the iPad. And it's like, the time I want you to be on the iPad watching Netflix, you don't want to be.
That's right.
So, yeah, just my luck.
Yeah.
But they've been pretty good. And, yeah, I always worry about that, about them being too loud, because you don't know how these microphones pick up pretty well.
Yeah.
They can pick up things in the background pretty well. So
I have been some other podcasters I've talked to laugh at how much editing I do. That's just that's my style. I one of the things I do is I remove as much noise from the background as I can, because over here you can't hear it, but we have good mics, but there's a hum that always comes through.
Yeah.
A listener probably wouldn't notice, but it bothers me, so I try to remove it.
Yeah, and I just noticed that just for the first time just a moment ago too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bothering me, but yeah, I'm really picky too. Like, even with my videos, I'm really picky about, I went through like 3 different kinds of microphones for my YouTube videos. If you go back and watch my first ones, the audio was terrible and the video quality was terrible as well.
Hi, I'm Godless Glen, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm doing a series called Indoctrination. This is part 1 called Sin. Let's go ahead and get started. Christianity teaches that we are all dirty sinners, deserving of death and eternal punishment. You and I are on our way to hell. You need salvation. So repent of your sins and you can be saved. My videos are not meant to be offensive by any means. Obviously, some people will be offended, but I believe that religion is harmful, and I believe that it causes more problems than it solves. So, I'm Godless Glen. I hope you've enjoyed this video.
But, yeah, well, the very first ones was with a webcam, but then I did a series with my iPad, and that is a no-no. You don't record stuff for YouTube on an iPad because it don't look good, you know? So I had to invest in a good camera and a good microphone.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, and you can get by a lot of times with bad video, but if the audio sucks and they can't hear you playing,
yeah,
that to me is like 70% of it is the audio quality. So
absolutely,
yeah, totally feel you on that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I appreciate you inviting me on the show. And you don't really make videos for YouTube, do you?
I'm not saying I never will make videos again, but the only thing I've done over the last few months is I put up a few what I felt were hilarious edits for Star Trek Voyager. Yeah. Because I watched through it and I hate the series. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I haven't really invested a lot of time in that because I've been focusing on this. Yeah. I need something to focus on over this period of my life because there's a number of negative things that have been going on, and I need something positive.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely be, if you decide to start making more things for your channel, I will definitely check it out.
Alrighty. I may, because of the way I did in my last video, I may have to start out with an analysis of A Voice for Men, which, to be honest, I know it's a lot of work, but I'm also not that, I don't think that it would do much positivity. Was what I was thinking at the end, because the people who are already into A Voice for Men are in. Like, they're just in. That's it.
Yeah. I'd not even heard of it until you mentioned it, honestly.
Yeah, it's a privately owned business, and they do stuff like fundraisers for the cause of socially helping men, and I think I don't like it.
I wasn't aware there was, I mean, maybe I'm just oblivious, but I wasn't aware there was a lot of issues surrounding men in this country. I mean,
well, I'll tell you, if you ever know anyone who goes through a bad divorce, like I don't talk about my situation a lot, but there's a lot of men who've been through apparently what I'm going through, and that is that there's a lot of stereotypes that have made their way into the legal system, and that not the average feminist, but extreme feminists have pushed for it.
Oh, okay.
So when my separation happened, it was a bad way for me, right? If my parents had not taken me in initially, I would have been homeless. And that's with me working all the time. And so the court treats it with certain assumptions, like the mother will automatically get the child, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and if there's an accusation each way, usually the accusation that stands will be the accusation against the man. It's just a lot of...
True.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that really... You'd be surprised how painful it can be.
Yeah, and these are issues I've not even really thought about too much.
I really appreciate you taking some time being on the show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was awesome for you to invite me. So, yeah, it's been a while since anyone has had me on a show or anything. So that was, it was cool for you to reach out and to invite me. So, and I don't really care about this. To me, it's not, about the size of the show. Like, it didn't matter to me if there's 1, 10, 100, or 1,000 listeners. Like, if one person, if I gain a new subscriber or something beneficial comes out of it. If not, then we just enjoyed a 2-hour chat, essentially.
Yeah.
So,
no loss.
Yeah.
Potential gain and no loss.
Definitely.
That was Godless Glen. You can catch him on YouTube. He's got his own channel. Easy to find. I'll have links in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, Amanda's coming to talk to us next episode about Camp Quest. Remember to go to their website, campquest.org, and check it out for availability. And maybe if you can commit your time to helping out so that other kids can go to camp as well. And we're going to end the show, not with my song this time. I got this song from Godless Glen, a recent production, an ode to Brian Fisher and his love of black males.
I love black males. I love black males. I love black males. I love black males. Oh, yeah. I love black males. I love black males. Oh, yeah. I love black males. I love black males. Oh, yeah. I love black males. I love males. Oh, yeah. I love black males. I love black males. Oh, yeah. I love black males. I love black males. Oh, yeah. I love black males. I love black males. Oh, yeah. I love males. I love black males. Oh, yeah. I love black males. I love black males. Oh, yeah. I love black males. Oh, yeah. I love black males. Oh, yeah. I love black males.
Fiery little crumbless ball, always keep me young and small. Boy, we said that right. Do you really think we'll always stay little, Pippi? Yes, if those 3 pills kept their strength, we're all set.